Yeah, I'm on a whole new level. I'm on a roll, you see how it goes.
Well, welcome back everybody to Season 2 of Floor20. We took a little break, but we're returning to your screens, iPhones, tablets, whatever device you're listening to us on. We are well and truly back. Prashit, how are you doing, mate?
I'm doing great. We made it, bro. We made it out of the pandemic.
Yeah, it was
we're
tough
still in the pandemic, aren't we? But
New Zealand, you lucky? You lucky?
we made it. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling healthy. I'm feeling strong. It was a tumultuous...
You're looking strong, man.
Yeah. Oh, it was a tumultuous few months, I will say. There was many kilos lost.
For both of us, yeah.
For the both of us. But we're back on the road to recovery, so... nothing to complain about, man.
Yeah. We're looking good out here in Vancouver now. Weather is slowly turning around as well, which is nice. But yeah, last season was our rookie season, Prashit.
Yep.
Of entering the podcast world, Floor20, season number 1. And we learned a lot. We had a lot of fun doing it. Anything you want to reflect on for season 1?
Yeah, I think we learned a few things about the format of the show, and we definitely are going to make some changes going forward in terms of the length, shorter episodes. And we're going to change up the formatting a bit. We're going to do different types of content, right?
Yeah, totally.
Challenges and things like that you'll see as well.
Yeah, we'll keep that on the download for now, but you guys got to be excited about what we got coming your way here. And we just wanted to actually send a quick little thank you to everyone who was with us through season 1. Consuming all of our content. We're going to hammer points home for you here in season 2 and hopefully be bigger and better for you guys and everyone else joining us for season 2 as well. So, without further ado,
Yeah. Should we get into it?
Let's get into what we're going to be talking about today.
So, you go for it, man.
Yeah.
Introduce us. Yeah.
Okay, so, guys, we wanted to really address what's going on in today's society with our return to Floor20. So, it might be a slightly different episode here today, but we want to dedicate, episode number 1 to spreading awareness and educating everybody a bit about oppression and the history of black people in America.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to really take our time in choosing how we can help the cause and really thought that doing it now would be an appropriate time.
Yeah, and so the episode's going to be a little bit different. We'll keep it as light as possible, but obviously, we are addressing some heavy topics. And as Devin said, we want to give some awareness, some education about history. We want to give some action items on things we can do. You will notice if you're watching the YouTube that we are looking down. We are going to be referencing material. We don't want to get it incorrect, so that's why we've got our laptops ready today.
Well, we did put things together for ourselves, so we're just doing our due diligence here so we can get everything right, aren't we?
Man, I can't get my microphone right. I'm a bit rusty here, boys.
Huh? It is the return, man. It is the return.
All right.
What do you guys think of the new set, though? You like it?
Yeah, new setup. Budget's going up, boys. Yeah, bro. So anyway, I think we can get right into it. The reason why we've waited a couple of weeks is we wanted to really digest everything that's going on in the world and see what we wanted to do. We wanted to make a bit of a plan. So this week, June 19th, is actually a holiday called Juneteenth. And Juneteenth is actually known as Freedom Day. And this is based on a day in 1865, about 2.5 years after the legal abolishment of slavery. And why this was 2.5 years after the legal abolishment, this was when the Union General, so the side of America that won the Civil War, Gordon Granger, he went into Texas and read the federal orders to essentially free slaves. And Texas was one of the deep South territories, so it was one of the more, I'd say, racially, aggressive places. So that was one of the days that was really a big point in history. And it's actually becoming more and more popular, not just in the black community, but as a recognized holiday. And the Twitter CEO even, Jack Dorsey, made it a public holiday for all employees, for all his companies. So it's getting there. And Devin, you just mentioned today as well.
Yeah. So there actually is something going on in Vancouver here for Juneteenth. Just a bit of a march, a peaceful protest, if you will. So if you're in Vancouver, make sure you find out the details about that one. and join your fellow Vancouverites and people that are living here at the moment, just to show your I guess make yourself put yourself out there really.
Yeah, and we'll be there.
Yeah.
Just see us on there, and we'll hopefully be able to bring back some good moments from there and share that as well, and keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
What do we want? Freedom! What do we want? Freedom! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Freedom! When do we want?
Well, I think the other part of this as well, throughout this conversation, obviously we're going to try and be sensitive around this sensitive topic, and we just want to say up front as well that we're not experts.
No.
We ain't black as well. We're not. So we're not giving our opinion on the black experience. We're just wanting to do our best to educate and spread a bit of that information. Especially we know a lot of our audience is from New Zealand and Canada, and they maybe didn't go through the American history in school. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity, to share the knowledge.
Yeah, 1000%. And we want to start really with exactly where Prashit and I stand and where Floor20 stands. And let me be abundantly clear with everybody here. Black Lives Matter, Prashit. That's exactly where we stand. And it's not enough to be not racist.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be anti-racist.
Right.
Continue to raise awareness and call people out.
Yep.
It could be your loved ones, your friends. It could be people that you even just hear on the street.
Parents, grandparents.
Yep. Call people out. We have to educate ourselves, understand history, be inclusive of everyone, and learn about different cultures as well. Immerse yourself in those cultures. Meet different people. Just talk to them on a human level.
Mm-hmm.
Human to human level. We're all the same species. And understand their upbringing and embrace those differences. We're all human. It's the only race on this earth, Prashit.
It is.
And, we really want to talk about today as well what we as Kiwis and also people from the brown community can do to support the Black Lives Matter movement and also racism in general in the long run.
Yep.
But, again, the main focus today is to spread knowledge and awareness around black history in America. And, you could be sitting at home right now asking, why is it important for Kiwis back home in New Zealand or the brown community to stand for this cause?
Mm-hmm.
It's because we all take from the black culture. And I think this is true for us as well, Prashit.
Actually, literally just having a look around. We've got LeBron James on the back of our phone. We've got Tupac sitting over there.
Yep.
We've got Kobe, LeBron, D-Wade,
NBA.
Kobe again. Like, it's...
Even the Floor20 is kind of like a basketball theme. NBA is...
Yeah, it's all part of it. I mean, Harry Potter, maybe not, but...
Tribe Called Quest as well, and music.
The Yeezys, like...
Everything.
It's a part of us, It is part of us.
It really is. And, I have listed here that it's everything. It's music, TV, film, fashion, sport. We're impacted by it all from the community. And it's important to understand where that all comes from.
Yep.
And from that understanding, it can really have a trickle-down effect against racism in general moving forward.
Exactly. And I think it's important to know, everyone, like, this is a moment as well. So it's good to, add some energy to this moment. And obviously everyone's got their own things going on, COVID and everything like that. And, there's problems in Yemen and there's problems here. But I think it's good to focus our energy and try and accomplish one task,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and be that person that makes a change. Don't let this just sort of disappear into existence. Yeah. Keep the movement rolling. It's on you. So, and what have we done? Prashit?
Yep.
So, a couple of weeks back, there was actually a protest here in Vancouver, the Vancouver Art Museum, and thousands of people turned out. I attended that just to. I felt like I wanted to. I needed to go to that, and I can tell everybody back home. I'm sure, if you're in New Zealand, you might have gone to the protest as well. But it's just a day I'll remember for the rest of my life. Hearing people stand up in front of thousands of people and tell us their experiences about being black in North America, and being within the black community in general. There's one speech that really hit home with me. It was a 17-year-old black girl from Vancouver here.
Yep.
And she was just bawling her eyes out with the microphone in front of, I think there was 3,500 people there, just bawling her eyes out. And she said, there hasn't been a day in my life that I've been proud to be black. And it
That
just...
she hasn't, she's always proud to be black.
No, she's never been.
Oh,
she's
she's
never been
felt
proud.
like-
She's felt like
Right,
because of
okay.
the systematic, the oppression. Like
Right.
it's she hasn't spent a day in her life being proud of her skin color or her ethnicity or where she's come from. And it just really, that one just really hit home for me. And I'll just remember that. And this is the reason why we have to enforce change as people that aren't from that community, so so we can help everybody be on the same level.
Exactly. Yeah. Some other things that we saw as well, right?
Yeah.
On TV and stuff. One I think that really was impactful for us both was Hassan Minhaj on
Right.
Netflix. He's got an episode. We're going to drop all these links in our description if you want to watch them. He had an awesome episode on the brown perspective, right?
Yep.
What else have we...
Yeah. So guys, we're gonna, like Prashit said, we'll drop these links in the description, but definitely take note of who we're about to mention here.
Yep.
So we mentioned Hassan from the brown community. LeBron James, as always, stepping up. He's really pushing people in America to vote. Obviously we're not citizens of America. We can't do so, but it's man, if there is, if there are American citizens listening to us, please go ahead and vote and really influence change in America. John Boyega and Israel Adesanya, just
John from Star Wars, Israel, UFC middleweight champion from New Zealand.
Right. So these two guys gave just the most raw, passionate, emotional speeches, really speaking from the heart. And if you haven't heard these ones, guys, you have to listen to these ones just to, you can hear the hurt in their voice, and it's just something you got to listen to.
Definitely.
And then also, Ashton Kutcher had an amazing one. Just from, I guess you could say from a white community's standpoint, perspective. Just to explain that it is Black Lives Matter and not All Lives Matter. If there still was some confusion around that debate, it's Black Lives Matter.
And the way he made the point was using male versus female. He's using his kids as an example, but basically telling his son that, we have to stand up for females because if we don't, maybe nobody will. And so he kind of used that same analogy to talk about why this moment specifically is Black Lives Matter, and like not to take away from that energy by maybe, talking about all lives matter. Because obviously there's a lot of things going on, but trying to focus in on that. On
this particular, exactly. And some other, documentaries, films that would be extremely valuable to watch. The 13th, which, it's a great historical overview of oppression in America. We actually sat down and watched this, a couple of days ago, which was, very educational and just another raw...
Quick hour and a half, very educational.
Yep, exactly. When They See Us, which is about the Central Park Five, the 5 teenage lads who were wrongly convicted of raping a woman in Central Park. It never happened, and they were put behind bars.
This is and like Trump took out a full page ad in like the New York Times or the big newspaper over there to say we should bring back like the death penalty, like we should kill them and stuff. And that's kind of where it was at. And then, I mean, weeks ago we just saw that situation happen in Central Park again with the bird watcher and the Karen, like, you know what I mean? Like the fake phone call. And I think they're trying to push through legislation to make those types of phone calls like hate crimes, so you can actually get charged.
Exactly what it is.
Exactly.
A couple more we wanted to just mention here quickly. Roots miniseries. So that gives you sort of like a timeline of slavery. Yeah,
and this is like an award-winning show. It was made in the 1970s or something, and they redid it with like T.I., Forrest Whitaker, Lawrence Fishburne in a couple of years ago. And from my understanding, this is a mini-series that most American kids push to watch during their school upbringing. So it's very much like a important piece to look at.
And 1,000%. So put that one on the list, guys. Malcolm X, So he played by Denzel Washington.
Yep.
Selma.
Yep.
Which is about a voters' march led by the one and only Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yep. Then this one was one I stumbled upon. There's a woman named Jane Elliott, and I saw her on Jimmy Fallon. She's been famous. She's older woman, white lady, but she's got this famous experiment called Brown Eyes, Blue Eyes. And I'll put the 40-minute link, the one I've got below, but there's videos on YouTube of her doing seminars or workshops in Australia, the UK, America, and these videos are filmed in, like, it looks like the 90s or something, so they're not present. She's also been on Oprah and done some work, but basically I maybe when I do the edit I'll insert a clip. If I don't, I'll just put it in the bio. But basically she takes like college students and adults and mixed students, and she puts everyone with blue eyes in the middle and she puts everyone with brown eyes on the outside, and then she begins with saying brown-eyed people are smarter than blue-eyed people, and she talks about how brown-eyed people are responsible for like math, the alphabet, like a lot of medicine and religions and all that kind of stuff, right? But then she uses the whole workshop as an example that I'm taking away your power, I'm taking the blue-eyed people's power away,
Right.
and she essentially treats them how you'd expect to see maybe a minority be treated in society. And she uses all these different techniques. And in the one that I watched, 3 grown like adults broke down crying because they just couldn't handle like
the reality
that like I don't have my white privilege. And there's Mexicans and black people on the side that are just sitting there like, yo, this is like my everyday life. Like, you know what I mean? So this was hugely impactful.
You blue-eyed people think that I look angry. You're the only ones who think I look angry. I don't look angry to these brown-eyed people. If you had to do it every day, what would happen to your blood pressure?
It would rise.
Yeah. If somebody stood over you and you knew it was going to happen every day, or you expected it to happen every day, or it happened when you didn't expect it to, or it happened to your kids every day, after it happened to your mother every day. Now, getting right along. Your hand is still up. Getting right along.
I heard what you were saying.
You're doing it again.
What you were
You're
saying.
doing it again.
I don't care.
You're doing it again.
It's wrong.
You're doing it again.
Persecuted her for standing out.
You're doing it again.
Persecuted him for standing out. The only change that ever happens is when people stand out, and I am standing.
Martin Luther King Jr. was shot. Are you in any physical danger here? Are you in any physical danger here? What is my point that I've made?
That you can't make generalizations about any place because there's racism everywhere.
That's right. And no. You don't come back in here until you've apologized to every person in this room, because you just exercised a freedom that none of these people of color have. When these people of color get tired of racism, they can't just walk out, because there's no place in this country where they aren't going to be exposed to racism. But you, as a white female, when you get tired of being judged and treated unfairly on the basis of your eye color, you can walk out that door. And you know it won't happen out there. You exercised a freedom they don't have.
I haven't actually seen any of that, so that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Happy you shared that. I'm going to take a look at that. Let's keep it rolling, eh? So we want to start with sort of the Kiwi, the Kiwi aspect of it. So, first off, racism in general. So as Kiwis and members of the brown community, what can we all do to address racism? We've unfortunately faced, I suppose you could say racism back home, slurs, just all around ignorance, bullying.
And we were talking like, we were some of the only one brown kid in our whole year group, or sometimes we're the only brown friend, or like, so there's plenty of situations that.
So there's things that have happened, but in saying this, we've never feared for our lives, and there isn't a system that oppresses us from growing in life, and creating our next generation and just living a fulfilled, successful life. But to attack, racism in general, just we want to preach to be inclusive of everyone. No stereotypes. Like those days have to go. Mm-hmm. Have conversations at home. Expand your circle. expand your circle of people, meet people from other cultures, societies, countries. Go to even cultural events that you can find. Like, these are steps you can literally take tomorrow. Call people out for being blatantly racist.
Yeah.
Even if it's about someone on TV, even if it's about someone that you see walking on the side of the street that you don't know. Call them out for that. Because that's what we're talking about with the systematic stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. So any negative comments on that about that nature, get rid of it.
And I think like that's where sports is great. Like for us as well, you have a teammate that's maybe from a different religion or a different background, or maybe was a refugee. Like when you ask them questions, you understand things, and you start to really gain different perspectives, and you build your empathy. You know what I mean? And so I think that's a really important thing. Just embrace all different cultures. And then I think the other one that I want to touch on as well is a problem, I think, with, I don't know why I laughed, Kiwi millennials. So I think, and we're Kiwi millennials, but Kiwi millennials have a bit of a disconnect. And to be honest, it probably is American millennials as well. There's a bit of a disconnect around the N-word. And I think like this moment in history is probably a good time to start to make sure that that's removed from...
No, never.
All your friends groups, like vocabularies and everything like that. I just think this is, a point to educate yourself and understand the meaning of the word, and like brown people, white people, like it's not our place. It's not our word to say.
I just want to put it in a statement. It's not our word to use.
Yeah.
It's not our word to use.
And so like we're going to be doing our best as well to keep our friends accountable and, just to build that up. And just wanted to touch on that. And the other thing I think as well is as Kiwis, we need to also change the way that we look at America in general. And I think like I've definitely seen this, and back before I'd done a bunch of traveling, I was definitely a person that did this. Like we just say, oh, it's America.
Yeah.
It's Trump. It's
we don't live there. Oh, yeah,
typical American.
Yeah,
it's not real. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just think that we need to start treating these situations rationally and normally, because the thing is, they lead kind of Western culture, and things that happen there do trickle down, and you'll see it. Hamilton, they're pulling down statues and stuff. Like, so we have to treat what's happening there with a level of seriousness, and not with that, Americans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're freaking humans as well. I'm just not saying black people. I'm saying like white people, everything over there. The way they act and everything is how we act. We just need to, I guess, not be so exclusive or distancing. Yeah, about it. And then like what? What other? Like we can't vote, obviously, but what else?
Yeah, I mean, so as we said, we're not American citizens here, but we're going to drop links of where you can. Donate your money to help out if that's something that you choose to do or want to do. But there's also things you can do without donating, without money. And you know what? Spreading awareness might seem like it's a very, minor action to take, but Prashit, I think that's actually the way that this will be abolished. Purely by spreading awareness, by spreading your word and helping each and every day. So that's one. Educate yourself on American history, like we're saying. Don't brush it off. These things happened and are still happening today. So literally just go and educate yourself about it. It will help a lot. And we're going to cover more of that as we move on here today.
Exactly. So I think basically what we're going to do now is I'm going to go through a bit of black history. I've kind of built on my own knowledge and done some research. The main resource I used was history.com and some news websites. So if you want to have a look, I'll drop the link as well. So the next is going to be about black history. So please listen along. I will add like pictures and things to make it more informative throughout. And then we'll kind of just, address some action items and things like that as well. And get into that.
Sounds good, man. I'm looking forward to you chopping through this.
All right. So I just want to preface again before we dive in, like we're not experts and I'm not trying to give my opinions. I'm just trying to spread some knowledge and give some facts. Okay. So basically I am going to go from like the slave trade and all the way up to modern day history. So, come along on this journey with me, guys. So basically in 1619, this is where the slave trade started in North America. It already existed, in like Spain, Portugal, and the UK and things like that. But essentially, in 1619, the first 20 slaves were essentially like intercepted from a ship that was a Portuguese ship and brought to the American continent to work on crop fields like tobacco and cotton. And this was predominantly in the South. If you think about like Africa, and if you go east of Africa, west of Africa, that's the east side of the North American continent. So the South, West Indies, Jamaica, all that kind of stuff. Even Brazil, like that's how people went all through there. And this is also where Roots and 12 Years a Slave will be a good piece of content to watch to just get the visual around it. I also want to note that the American Revolutionary War was 1775 to 1783. Mm-hmm. So that was in the 1700s, about 150 years after slavery kind of started in America. That was the fight against Great Britain. And then the Civil War between the North and the South of America, as in the northern states and the southern states, that was in 1861. So that was about 220, 30 years after slavery started in America. So I just wanted to set those type of things. And a little bit on that northern versus southern states. The northern states were led by Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
And that was like the Union. They called it the Union. And the southern states were called the Confederate States. And that's where you're seeing a lot of these like Confederate flags and I don't know why I did this. Confederate flags and Confederate statues and monuments being taken down in the South or the southern states of America, even to this day, because that's where a lot of the racism and slavery actually happened. There wasn't as much slavery in the North. They didn't rely on that for their economy.
Okay.
And that's why the war kind of started, because the South wanted to keep the racism.
Just two different ways of thinking.
Two different ways of thinking.
Okay.
And that's why to this day, like it's the South is a different place. And I personally haven't been there. I've been to Miami, but that's not really like what the South. I haven't been to like outside of South Beach, but that's kind of where you'll still see a lot of that. And even have you done road trips in between? Like if you go outside of the large metropolitan areas, you will see like billboards and stuff that are like, they'll talk about like white power and stuff in the middle of like Washington on the West Coast. It's crazy.
Yeah. I think we've both gone for road trips on the West Coast here, and some things are pretty astonishing.
All right, so moving along from slavery, we have the post-slavery era, right? So the end of the war so Abraham Lincoln ended the war. That was the post-slavery era. He got assassinated, and then somebody else stepped into his shoes and started to lead the Reconstruction era, but it didn't really go the right way.
Okay.
And this was 1864. And this is when the 13th Amendment, so the documentary, the 13th, this is where that all started. So the 13th Amendment was added to abolish slavery, except as a punishment for crime. So this is where you'll see, you have, I think there was about 4 million black slaves or African slaves in the South. And, if you abolish slavery or make it illegal, well, what are these people that have been slaves for 250 years, for generations, going to do? They don't have education. There's no system set up. They don't own property. They don't, some of them did, but, there's no system set up for success. Mm-hmm. So a lot of them basically fell victim to what's called Jim Crow laws, or what's called the Black Codes. Okay. So essentially, they were free, but what happened is they implemented all these laws, especially in the South, where there was a legal way to put black people, black citizens, back into indentured servitude. Basically, they took their voting rights away. They could also control how they lived, traveled, and they were also able to seize their children for labor purposes. Like, I'm like your owner or whatever. Your child is my property. Like, right?
Oh, man.
Heavy shit. And then I also want to note, in the South, after the war, a lot of those Confederate military army soldiers, whatever, they became cops and judges. So now you've got racist Confederate army members as your police and as your judges. So if anything goes to court,
it's corrupt.
You're done. So basically, these Jim Crow laws and black codes, you had to, immediately after slavery was abolished, you were required to sign yearly labor contracts to lock you in as cheap labor. So like you couldn't, go here, there, or you couldn't just quit the job and go do whatever you want, right? There was also laws that were set up so that they could only be farmers or servants in like the South and in certain states. So you couldn't even get another job unless you paid like some hefty tax. And this was basically a way, if you didn't follow these laws, you could be arrested, fined, beaten, forced into unpaid labor. So basically it was just a way to legally put people back into slavery, right?
Oh,
Let me ping you for something wrong and then just put you back into like slavery, right?
So we're trying to escape it, but we're not actually, are we?
No. And so I'm still in the late 1800s,
Yeah.
right? The decades after the war.
Yeah.
Now, in the 1870s, there were some equal voting rights given to black people. But this is when white supremacy groups like the KKK started to come
Okay.
up, right?
Right.
And so what they would do is disenfranchise voters. So, yeah, you have the right to vote, but what good is that if there's violent groups of people that are attacking you on your way to the polls, right? Like, how are you going to vote? And that's what the movie Selma is set 100 years later, but that's what Selma is about. It's about Martin Luther King marching with first hundreds, but then thousands of people to go vote at the polls and being stopped by the government to go and vote.
Wow.
Or local state governments. But that's what I'm saying. This is what oppression is, guys. It's not just racism.
Yeah.
Now, the KKK were also known to, publicly lynch people, burn down black schools, force communities off their land. I don't know if anybody's seen the announcements by Russell Westbrook, but he's going to be making a documentary about Black Wall Street. There's an announcement. I think LeBron's company as well, Uninterrupted, is going to be making one as well. But essentially, Black Wall Street was like a town or a city that was almost like a self-sufficient black community. And it was where wealthy or rich black people in, it might have been the 1920s, I think, around World War I, end of World War I, they would pool their money together to build like hotels and to have their own community. And basically, when the KKK and groups started seeing them flourish, they just burnt down the whole city.
So what I'm hearing pretty much just throughout the years is that we have tried what we can. Well, certain groups have tried what they can to abolish these things, but
Yep.
the opposite groups find a way to bring it back and
Exactly.
Man.
Just keep them in a hole, right? And then these Jim Crow laws spread from the South to nationwide. So that's where, more to public knowledge, through the 1900s, 40s, 50s, 60s, until the Black Civil Rights Movement, there was segregation, separate schools, separate movie theaters, restaurants, parks, waiting rooms, restaurants,
My
entrances,
God,
fountains,
man,
cemeteries.
come on.
And this is similar to apartheid South Africa, right?
Right.
So we've got friends from South Africa as well that
We
have
do.
experienced it, and their dads have experienced it. Now, this system, you got to think about, this segregation system existed a whole 100 years after slavery was legally abolished, right? And it's been 50 years even since the Black Civil Rights Movement, and there's still so much work to go. So basically, before I get into the Black Civil Rights Movement, which happened in the signing of the bill happened in 1964, in 1955, this is where the Black Civil Rights Movement kind of got its start, and this is what sparked it to put people into action. And you can kind of see that's what's happening right now. So 1955, and mind you, in 1955, Donald Trump was a teenager. Morgan Freeman, a black man, was a teenager. Joe Biden was a teenager. So this is recent.
No, this is pretty much now.
Recent, bro. Emmett Till, a 14-year-old boy, allegedly whistled at a woman in a grocery store.
Man,
3 days later, her husband and her brother pulled him out of his family's house into the street in the middle of the night, beat him, shot him, and threw him in a river. 3 months after the body was found, the men stood before an all-white, all-male jury and were acquitted for murder. So they got let go. So it was it was called the free murder. And we've seen this happen on the other foot, where you're supposed to be tried by a jury of your peers, right? There was another boy that was the last person to be executed or electrocuted or something, right?
Well, yeah.
And I think his whole jury was white people. And so how is that a jury of your peers? You
No,
know what
it's
I mean?
not.
And so this is almost a similar thing to the 1870s where after slavery was abolished, well, the cops are Confederate Army, the judges are like, what are you going to do? You know?
We keep finding ways to have this systematic stuff in place, man.
It's crazy.
It's awful.
And that's the thing. I think I'll just, little side note, New Zealand was only discovered when slavery was abolished the Treaty of Waitangi was only really signed pretty much around the same 20-year period as when slavery was abolished. So like this American history has so many deep roots that it's just different. You know what I mean? Now, what happened was after this death, and you know everyone was outraged, obviously, similar to what's happening today.
Of course.
This sparked citywide bus boycotts in Montgomery, Alabama, and this is basically what started the civil rights movement. And I'm not going to dive into the civil rights movement, but it's a really, really good thing to learn about. Super, super interesting. There's a lot of movies about it, a lot of different content. But this is where you'll see the names of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, the Black Panthers, Rosa Parks. That's where you'll see their names come up.
Okay.
If you want to learn more, we mentioned Selma. We mentioned the Malcolm X movie. There's even like Fresh Prince episodes about it. Like there's really good content about it.
Educational, but like you wouldn't like it's something you have to watch. You really have to watch it.
And this is also when so this is in the 1960s. Back then, it was okay for like the police to release attack dogs on people that were peaceful protesting, or put fire hoses and do that kind of stuff, right? So that's kind of where that happened. Now, almost done here, guys. So now I want to get onto the topic of ghettos, or what people call ghettos, right? Or inner city, urban communities. So how were these formed? And a little bit of this, not in the legal sense maybe, but this is also how impoverished areas are formed in like New Zealand. Like you have certain suburbs or parts of cities. This is how it happens. But this is very different. So redlining, this was a legal term. In 1933, a new housing act essentially began to further the segregation. So basically they would build these communities for white people and not allow black people to also enter them, and like not allow them to purchase the properties, right?
Okay. Yep.
Then years later, after the Black Civil Rights Movement, there was a new act, 30 years, 40 years later, where they said, okay, black people, you can now buy properties here. But of course, like after so long, those house properties values went up. Black people are still down here. So like, how are you going to even afford it, right? Now, black people were prohibited from buying homes in white neighborhoods in the 40s, 50s, and even 60s. So they basically couldn't build equity in terms of an asset. They didn't have something they could work hard their entire life, pay off a house, hand it down to their children, and give their children a head start, right? So the next generation has a head start.
Got you.
So that's what they were deprived of. Then redlining is illegal now, but even like as late as 2018, there's been investigations into banks that have been turning away minorities, all color minorities, loans at higher rates than white people. So like there's a bit of extra back-end math around this, but essentially the bank owns the house. They own the mortgage, right? So if you default on your mortgage, they are on the hook for the mortgage, right? So they want the property values to be as high as possible. Well, there's this thing where if it's a white neighborhood and minorities move in, it devalues the value of the neighborhood. So essentially the property owners lose money and the banks lose money. So this is why this sort of stuff was still kind of happening behind the scenes. Then during the 60s, 70s, and 80s, so post Black Civil Rights Movement, what happened is the black populations grew in inner cities from about 6 million to 15 million over a 20-30 year period. So this is scary for white people. So they started to move out from the inner cities. So inner city New York, inner city LA. That's how you have these places like Compton form, because everyone's moving out to Sherman Oaks and that kind of thing, right? It's almost the opposite in Auckland, where you have the inner ring of Ponsonby and Remuera. That's all essentially, it's the more wealthy people, and then the further you go out, that's where you have the lower, the impoverished people, right? South Auckland, essentially.
Yep.
So this is almost like the opposite, where the inner city was the roughest part. So white people moved out to the suburbs. And with them, they took jobs, so that further spreads the gap, because then if poor people don't have jobs, then they get more poor, right? So they fall into this trap. So unemployment began to grow. Then on top of that, so now you have all these black communities that are impoverished and they don't have financial resources, they don't have education, they don't have land ownership, they have generations of being discriminated against. Now we move into the 70s, 1970s, the war on drugs. And this is covered pretty well in the 13th, so I'll just highlight a few points. So basically, this was like a shady law that was put in place to target black people and hippies. There's even recordings of President Nixon's policy chief that talked about how it would be targeted towards black people. His name was John Ehrlichman. And he said that, and this was President Nixon's policy chief. He said this was part of the Nixon re-election campaign, or the election campaign, that they had two enemies: the anti-war left, so as in like the far left, the Democrat, like heavy Democrats, and black people. He was quoted saying this.
Oh, come on.
This is quote: "We knew we couldn't make it illegal to either be against the war on black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and the blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them in the middle of the night and on the evening news." Did we lie? Did we know that we were lying about drugs? Of course we did. That's what he said.
That's
Right. So
crook.
so that then you have so the war on drugs, on heroin and stuff, right? Then onto that, the next decade, the next president, Ronald Reagan, or he might have been one or two after, but Ronald Reagan, basically the next president or the next term, he started the Just Say No campaign. So this is like the I'm going to say 80s. Excuse me if I'm wrong. The war on drugs, 1970s. Just Say No, 1980s. So this expanded the previous laws, and basically this they made mandatory minimum sentences. Now they claim to make it look like, oh, we're going to put this in place so that judges can't give black people higher sentences and white people no sentences. They made it mandatory minimum. So if you get popped for this crime, minimum, you're getting this. But it was a sneaky way, because they basically did it as 5 grams of crack cocaine. So this new drug, crack cocaine, came out. So 5 grams is like a teaspoon, right? If you get caught with a teaspoon of crack cocaine, which was like the poor drug or the unrefined drug, so it was mainly in black American communities, you would get the same sentence than if somebody was walking around with a half-kilo bag of cocaine. A teaspoon or a half-bag kilo cocaine. And mind you, cocaine was like the white drug, the upper-class drug. So it's a bit, a bit shady there.
Oh, for sure.
Now, there's a minimum automatic sentence of 5 years, and then obviously you can build sentences above that. Now, I did see some stats. Please go check them yourself. I didn't write them down, but it was something like 88%. I think it was actually 88%. 88% of people that were arrested for crack cocaine were black. So well,
there it is.
You know what I mean? It's imbalanced. Now, excuse me. So this basically led to the mass incarceration of black people. Mothers, fathers getting pulled away from their children. Now you have broken homes, and we all know broken homes lead to more crime, less education, and just that cycle of that poverty. And basically, this is where kids fall into gangs, and that's essentially led up into today. And, there was Bill Clinton after that basically promoted the construction of prisons and the privatization of prisons, and prisons have now become a profitable business. And that's where we kind of see from all the way back from slavery into post-slavery era, black civil rights era, 70s, 80s, into the 90s, you see this oppression on black people, not just racism. It's legal oppression. You see their communities being broken, and people will say, oh, black on black violence is so much higher than white on white violence. Or why is it that black people get arrested more? It's because of these broken systems. It's they're not set up to succeed, and it's generations of this not being set up to succeed, right?
They don't get the same chance, do they?
They don't get the same chance. And so, I mean, that's the black history, guys. So definitely do your part to continue to learn. But I just wanted to, brush everyone up on that kind of stuff.
Totally.
And Devin, I know you wanted to talk about some of the more recent things and what have been happening and why everything's going on today.
Yeah, and before I touch on that one, Prashit, I wanted to say a big thank you to you for giving us that little insight. And this is actually what we're talking about, guys. Spreading awareness and doing research and educating yourself is what Prashit has just done. And he informed me a lot just then. I learned a lot just now, and I hope hopefully you guys, you learned a lot as well. So follow his lead. I know I'm going to do so as well. Yeah, I do want to mention a few names on a more recent level.
Yep.
And, just to really, I guess, show the point of what you have been just talking about. So, first of all, Trayvon Martin, shot dead for wearing a hoodie and just walking at night. Literally, for the attire he was wearing and the color of his skin.
It's like 13 or something, eh?
Very young, shot dead. Trayvon Martin, say his name. Eric Garner, the world heard his plea. I can't breathe. Choked to death for allegedly selling cigarettes illegally. A minor offense. Eric Garner, say his name. George Floyd, the infamous killing, unfortunately, where an officer thrust his knee on Floyd's neck for allegedly using a counterfeit $20 bill, I believe. Just all the details that we've all heard about this one, absolutely shocking, devastating. George Floyd, say his name. Ahmaud Arbery, shot dead by two people in a pickup truck while jogging home innocently or going on a jog. Just tough to even talk about here. Ahmaud Arbery, say his name. And lastly here, Breonna Taylor, shot dead during a no-knock search warrant. Completely innocent. Police were investigating a crime that was in a nearby building, not her building at all. Not even not her room, not her building. Shot dead.
They went. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to finish off. Breonna Taylor, say her name.
And they actually went to the wrong property, with that one. And then one thing we didn't mention is to watch. Dave Chappelle released a new special, like 20-30 minute special. It's on YouTube. It's not a comedy special. It's a speech, but it's done by Dave Chappelle. Unbelievable.
Right.
That's something to watch.
Okay, that's exactly. And I've heard the same thing here. And maybe a quick note as well is that, we're giving you facts, but we're also giving you our raw emotions and feelings as well. But, we do both have, police officers in our family, and we understand that not all police officers, are bad, but by any stretch. Yeah. But part of what we're saying here is that there are issues in certain parts of America, which does filter into these facts that we're saying. Leading off that, what are we going to do? We're going to continue to educate ourselves. Continue to do that, so in the future we can be more, understanding, compassionate. Not only for the black community, African Americans, but even people of color. In New Zealand as well, and all over the world. One thing that we will say is to use your privilege, whatever that may be. But if you have a privilege, it's on you to educate yourself about your privilege and use that to help people less privileged than you. So whether it be money, resources, or just your connections, help people out that are in a lesser state. Continue to help out lesser communities. And once again, we'll provide links on how to do that in the description here. And
just to add to what Devin's saying here, one thing I forgot to say is, I think with the Breonna Taylor thing, the no-knock search warrant, after all this, after the protest, they were actually able to pass a bill, I believe, to stop like the no-knock search warrants in that state or whatever. So
Gotcha.
like action's happening. And to double down on what Devin's saying, use your privilege, right? Like help friends, help immigrants, help people like that. Like if somebody's just come to a country, they rich, poor, good background, bad background, they don't have a community, they don't have that those roots, right? They don't have somebody that can help set them up in a sports club, or they don't know to ask for this internship because it'll be beneficial for them in the future. They don't have a friend that can help them with an interview. They don't know to university isn't enough. You have to do some extracurricular activities. Like there's a bunch of knowledge that you'll just have from your parents or your grandparents or your cousin or this that you can just share to everyone.
Very true.
And we mentioned before, like, have people over for dinner. Go to people's house for dinner. If you're brown, invite people over for dinner. Have a cultural dinner. Explain to them. Have conversations. It's good to learn about different things, and invite them to cultural events like we were talking about. Other things that you can do as well is get involved in community centers, mentoring youth, like big brother programs, little sister programs, or big sister programs, coaching, all that type of stuff. Like positive older role models can help children, and just share as much of your knowledge as possible. Like something that like Devin's done a lot of coaching and the kind of youth coaching groups and things like that, and something that, like, I even overheard him talking to one of the interns that was at work the other day and just educating them on his experiences and his job experiences and stuff like that. That's something that I try and do as much as possible. Like as early career professionals, there's university grads that don't know what the hell they want to do. Like there's things that even we can provide them. So just help people along. And
everyone has something they can provide value for. So
and I think Devin, do you want to take us home here, wrap us up?
Yeah, we've let you guys know our opinions. We've let you guys know facts. And what you can do is we want to just really hammer it home. So educate yourselves, spread awareness, use your privilege. It's on you to make the change. Last but not least at all, Black Lives Matter.
I'm counting the world. Yeah, I'm on a whole new level. I'm on a roll, you see how it goes. MVP, a man so wavy, champ like Brady, boss like Jay.